Hello, welcome to my channel where I bring you lampworking tutorials and demonstrations. Today I'll be showing you how to make a disc implosion flower such as this one. I hope that you find this video useful. If you do, please don't forget to like and subscribe. Let's jump right in. The tools you'll need to make this flower are a couple of clear glass rods to use as punnies, a graphite pad, a graphite paddle, a graphite reamer, and an assortment of different tweezers. As for glass, we'll be using a 15mm clear rod, a stringer of jet black, a stringer of caramel, and a rod of crystal bliss. Just a heads up, this footage will be sped up in places to keep this video nice and short and watchable. We're going to start off today with both our inner and outer flame. We definitely want just a nice, big, gentle, bushy flame. And the first step here is going to be to go ahead and introduce our 15mm rod into the flame. So we're just going to flick that in and out of the flame until it's adjusted to the heat. And once we can safely immerse that rod in the flame, we're going to go ahead and start to form our gather. I would say go for about an inch, maybe up to an inch and a half in diameter, depending on what size you would like your finished flower to be. And once we have that gather, we're just going to use our graphite pad and gently press straight down while spinning the piece to form a disc. You can see what that looks like here. And now I'm just going to quickly dip the front of that disc into my flame just to polish off any tool marks that my graphite pad left behind. So now I'm going to go ahead and drop down to my inner flame, and I'm really just making this flame as small as I possibly can for the color work, which will be just a little bit intricate. So to start off here, I'm going in with my jet black and I'm laying down 7 dots right in the middle of the piece. It's really important to make sure that your first dot is centered. If you don't like the placement, you can pull it off with tweezers like I just did there. You want to lay these dots down in a standard 6-petal pattern, so 1 dot in the middle and then the other 6 surrounding it. Once you have your dots in place, you can make your flame a little bit bigger and go ahead and melt them into the disc. And I'm trying to show here a little bit so you can see what the pattern and placement looks like. So I'm melting those dots in and using my graphite paddle just to make sure they're completely melted in and flush with my disc. Here you can see a little better what those dots look like. So now I'm going to get my small tweezers that have a nice pointy end on the edge of them. And I'm going to go ahead and apply heat to those dots. And I do apologize for my hat here, but basically I'm just using these tweezers to push each of those dots in directly back into the glass just a little bit. This is a light touch. You don't want to push them super far, just enough so that they'll have a little bit of pop in the finished piece. So now I have those dots all pushed in. You can kind of see what that looks like here. So the next step is going to be to lay down my petals, which are going to be with this caramel stringer. So again, I want a pretty small flame. This one's just a little bit bigger than what I used for the black dots in the middle. And just following that same 6-dot formation, I'm going to lay down 2 rows of 6 petals outside of those black dots in the middle. These dots should be a good bit bigger, maybe even 3 or 4 times the size of the black dots that you laid down in the center. So now you can kind of see what that looks like here. I just have all my dots laid down outside of those black dots in the middle. So now I'm going to go ahead and just move back up to my outer flame. And again, just a nice, bushy, balanced flame. And I'm going to go ahead and immerse this. And again, I'm just applying heat and saturating it in to melt those dots until they're completely flush with my disc. So once those dots are flush, I'm going to go back in with my tweezers. And what I'm doing here is actually pulling out on the outer edge of each of those dots. And this is a very gentle movement again. It's just a very small pull. And again, rather than pushing into the disc like we did with the black dots, we're kind of pulling out to create a petal shape, as you can see here. So now back into the flame, we're going to go ahead and begin the imploding process. So if you could see this from the front, I am holding this rod up and away from the flame at maybe a 10 or 15 degree angle. You basically just want to have it angled so that gravity works with you to kind of cause the edge of that glass to flow underneath and push up into the center. As you're doing this, you should kind of see like an indent forming in the bottom of the middle of the piece. And you just want to periodically use your graphite pad to flatten out that bottom just to make sure that you're not trapping any air in that indent. This is a pretty long process, so be patient. Just keep going back and forth between the flame and flattening the back out on your graphite pad until you see the flower coming out on the other side of the glass. Here's a little bit of a view of what that should look like. You can see how it's inside rather than just on the bottom at this point. So now we're ready to go in with our background color, which is going to be that rod of Crystal Bliss. So I'm going to go ahead and introduce that to the flame and start forming a gather while simultaneously applying heat to the back of the flower portion of the piece. And here you can see I'm fusing the two together and then just using my flame to cut off the remainder of that Crystal Bliss rod. And right back into the flame, I'm going to go ahead and just immerse this. At this point, I'm actually angled down below the flame because I'm basically just trying to get that Crystal Bliss to completely fuse with the back of the piece, make sure there's no weird angles or seams. And I'm also kind of gathering it back in on itself so that it'll form into a round ball. And then I'm using my graphite pad to flatten the back so that my pendant will have a nice even flat back. You can see what that looks like here. And at this point I'm satisfied with how this is looking, so I'm going to go ahead and introduce one of my clear rods into the flame just to use it as a handle and fuse that onto the back of the piece here. And once I have a good fuse here, I'm going to go right back into the flame and just use it to go ahead and cut that 15mm rod off of the front of the piece. So just a simple flame cut here. And then I'm going to go ahead and just go in with my medium tweezers just to pull off a little bit of extra glass that I want to remove from the front. At this point, your piece will have just a little bit of like a Hershey's Kiss shape to it. So after we get that extra glass off the front, I'm going to pick up my graphite paddle and use that just to keep the heat off of the back of the piece, make sure the back stays flat. And I'm just going to saturate the heat on the front. And again, I'm angled down and away from the flame to cause the glass to gather back in on itself so that our pendant will be nice and even and round. And again, you can kind of see what that looks like here. And at this point, I'm satisfied with the shape, I'm satisfied with the flower, so I'm going to go ahead and add another handle. And basically, I'm just deciding which way I want to be facing up, and I'm going to attach my handle directly opposite of where I want my loop to go. And just detach the handle that I have attached to the back there. And at this point, I just need to get the extra glass off the back of the piece and use my graphite paddle and my tweezers to kind of clean up that punny mark. I'm not actually going to show the loop in this video, and that's just because I already have another great video that goes really in depth on making loops. So if you need, go over and watch that one to finish it up. So here's how the piece turned out. I really do appreciate you watching. Check out my Etsy store that's linked in the comments if you'd like to support my work by buying it. Otherwise, thanks for watching and have a good day.